This is a Sandy Boy Productions podcast. Hey everybody, welcome to Why Is Everyone Yelling with Lindsay Hine. I'm your host, Lindsay, and I'm so grateful you're here today. This is a podcast for parents or anybody helping raise kids. I hope it's helpful, encouraging, and provides you with a little bit of support. If you have been enjoying this podcast, would you leave us a quick rating and review on iTunes or whatever platform you're listening on? I guess iTunes is king. Because that is one way potential new listeners can find us. And I'm always trying to grow these shows, hoping they'll be an encouragement to somebody. Today's episode is episode 63, and my guest is Shanisty Ireland. Shanisty is a former news reporter and anchor. She is now the mother to 4, and she runs the blog She's Becoming Domestic. She's had a couple of articles that have gone viral on Scary Mommy, and Shanisty talks openly about the messy parts of motherhood as well as the fun parts. We had a lot of fun in this conversation. I really connected with her and felt like we could be great friends if we lived a little bit closer. And that's my hope. I hope when you listen to these conversations on the podcast that you feel like you're joining a conversation between two friends and that we can be a part of your day. It's so fun to me to think of all of us sitting together and having these conversations. Please check out our Facebook group, Why Is Everyone Yelling? As well as our Instagram page, Why Is Everyone Yelling? To connect with us in deeper ways on this podcast. I would love to connect with you. You can learn more about this show, Why Is Everyone Yelling, at sandyboyproductions.com. And I want to give you a little heads up. Next week, I'm taking a break week. We have some great episodes already recorded for the coming weeks after, but I decided I would give myself and my wonderful editor, Emma, a break week. So you all have happy holiday, and we will see you after this week. We will see you with a new episode on December 28th. All right, cool. Enjoy my conversation with Shanisty. All right. Well, today on Why Is Everyone Yelling, we have Shanisty Ireland on the show. Welcome to the show, Shanisty.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
How's your day going?
Oh, busy. Just another day in paradise. You know, I have 4 kids. So my oldest son is actually homeschooled. He is 8 years old. He's a competitive golfer. So he travels a lot for golf and he golfs a lot during the day. So he wanted to be homeschooled again this year. And then my daughter is in 2nd grade, and then I have a 5-year-old who's in preschool and a 2-year-old who just kind of wanders around. You know, he's just there.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I saw you say something about homeschooling some of your kids, and I was like, I wonder how that works out and why she does that. So you just answered my question right off the bat there.
Yeah, so last year we decided to homeschool our kids, just with the pandemic. It was just so back and forth. Like, Are they in? Are they out? Is it virtual? And I originally signed up my 2 older kids to do the virtual option. But then when I found out that they were going to be sitting in front of a computer for 8 hours a day, and I'm sure that was great and wonderful. And the teachers that had to do that and the parents that had to do that, I think that they did the best that they could with what they had in that type of situation. But my husband and I were kind of toying with the idea of homeschooling. Eventually, I kept saying, well, when they get to middle school, if it gets too rocky in there, I'll pull them out and I can homeschool them. And it just kind of seemed like the perfect excuse to go ahead and give it a try. So I homeschooled my 3 older kids last year, and it was difficult. It was rewarding. It was pretty much everything that you can imagine it would be. The beautiful thing about homeschool is there's really no set, you have to do this, right? There's so many different ways you can homeschool. There's so many different curriculums. You don't even have to do a curriculum, which is really great if you're a free spirit and you're just wake up like, hey, kids, what do you want to learn about today? It's also very overwhelming if you're used to a set structure. So we did that last year, and it was great. My daughter, on day 4 was like, "Can I have a sick day?" And I was like, "No, you're homeschooled. Like, there's no sick day. Like, this is what we signed up for the year." So she was very happy to go back to school this year. She's very social. She's into art. She's into music. She's into all of the extracurriculars that mom wasn't really providing at home. So during the summer, we really just gave our children the option. We said, "What do you want to do? Do you want to be homeschooled, or do you want to go back to school?" And we laid it all out for them, like, you likely will have to wear masks. You may be sent home for quarantine. There were so many unknowns. And my daughter, who's the second grader, was like, "Sign me up, I'm going back." And then my older child, Luke, he wanted to continue to be homeschooled this year. So yeah, that's kind of how we got there.
It's so interesting too. You mentioned he's a competitive golfer, and then he golfs during the day a lot. If you can like create that environment and that's what he likes to do, how cool is that?
It is pretty cool. And that's kind of what we faced is I'm here. It's not that I don't do anything, but I do have the flexibility and ability to do that. And right now, he's only 8. Like, he could wake up tomorrow, or he could wake up next year and be like, "Hey, I don't want to golf anymore."
Yeah.
And that's one of the challenging things that we're even facing as parents is like, how much do you invest in it?
Yeah.
Because for one, we have 4 kids,
so
we can't invest everything into him. And for 2, he very well may wake up tomorrow and say, "I don't want to golf anymore." And we don't ever want to be in that position where we've sold the house and moved to Florida just to follow his golf career. But at the same time, if we have the ability, which we do, we want to support him as much as we possibly can at this young, critical age where he plays in the World Championship. So he's playing against kids from Mexico and Ireland and England, as well as kids from Florida who are significantly better than him. But putting him on kind of that global stage, we see what it takes if this is what he wants to pursue.
Is Florida like the golfer state?
It kind of is.
Really?
If you think about it. Yeah, or even the South in general. And of course, there's a lot of great golfers that come out of Texas and California. We're a little limited here because, today it's like, 23, maybe 30 degrees. We have access to a facility that has indoor bays, but he can't go out and play 9 holes. He can't go out and play 18 holes in January where there's snow on the ground. So those kids that are in those warmer states just have a real advantage, in my opinion, to be able to golf year round. But then again, golf is such a funny sport because it's so individual. It is literally him, the golf club, the ball, the course, and my husband who typically caddies him. And so, we don't push him, and there's not a coach really to push him. There's no teammates to push him. So it's completely on him. If he wants to go out and golf, we've told him what it takes to get to that level. We told him what it takes to get in the top 10 in the world. And if he wants to do it, then, we're going to just support him as much as we possibly can. But I'm not going to wake him up every morning at 6:00 and say, "Hey, Luke, you got to go downstairs and hit golf balls," or we got to get to the range. It's got to be him as well, because I don't want any of my kids to have that kind of childhood.
Yeah. It's so tough. Our oldest son plays soccer, and that's his like sport that he does. And I think he's pretty good, but we haven't like invested hardcore or anything. He just plays in the leagues, and I see the potential there. And I really struggle with like, how much do you push it in? Like, how much do you really push for this, and how much do you just let him play? Because there are 2 things, right? At some point, that development at an early age does matter, but also like, you have the talent or you don't, right? Like, LeBron James 100%. Is going to be LeBron James regardless of what he did when he was 8 or 10 or 12.
Yeah, 100%. And another thing you have to take into consideration, our son Luke is pretty medium size, medium build. So some of the kids that are golfers or soccer players or basketball players or whatever sport you're involved in that are really big are much, much better. And they just are. That's that's just how it is. Unless they are incredibly clumsy or slow, like the kids that are twice the size of Luke, they can hit the ball farther. They just can. They're stronger. So then it kind of gets to this point where eventually they're all going to even out. And we keep telling him and we keep telling each other, the hard work then will eventually prove themselves. And the kids that have just had it so easy, they're either going to work harder or they're going to kind of fizzle out. And so that's just kind of a challenge that we've had over the years. And golf is not a cheap sport. No. I mean, but soccer isn't either. If you want to get into the club and the travel, same with baseball. Any sport on that level is not cheap. It's very expensive. And so it took until we went to the first World Championship. I mean, we rolled in like tin cup. He had 8 golf clubs. He didn't have a golf belt. Like, he looked like a little kid from the sticks compared to these kids who had, and their name embroidered on the golf bags, and they had $500 putters. And we golfed with this family from Mexico, and the dad said, do you need help financially? We can buy golf clubs. And we were like, no. But my husband was very set on, until he proves to us, we're not going to invest in $1,000 set of golf clubs until he really gets to that level and proves that he really wants it. Because I think a lot of times as parents, I mean, we all want our kids to go pro, right? And especially in this state with football, I think everyone thinks that their kid's going to be a Buckeye, and the odds of it are they're probably not. And we understand, especially with a sport like golf, where there's only like 150 golfers on tour, he's probably not going to go pro. But he could possibly get a scholarship, or he could possibly teach lessons, or, maybe he will go pro. We don't know. But I just think it's a reality check, and we're constantly keeping ourselves in check. My husband played professional soccer, so he feels like he knows what it takes to get there, which is very helpful. But at the same time, he's constantly balancing, like, do I want that life for Luke? Do we want him to be all consumed in this sport? And then whenever that dream may not come to fruition, or it may not have the outcome they're expecting, we don't want him to be just so crushingly hurt and like, what do I do now? So it is a balance.
That's an interesting perspective that you guys have then. Your husband coming from a background where he poured so much into it and then actually did play professionionally.
Yep. Yeah. And it's great, but it's also,
it's
hard.
It's this balance of like, so I'm a runner, and my son, they just did like the timed mile at school. And I was like secretly like, I know you can run really fast. And so I want you to do that. Because A, I know how good it feels to run fast. But B, I just want you to like work hard and see what your potential is. But I was like finding myself like trying to figure out this balance of like, have fun, but also like, no, work really hard. Like, see what you can actually do. Like, what's the balance when they're like 9 years old, Because you do want to teach your kids to work hard.
Absolutely. And I think that's a struggle that we have as parents. And I think just you having that perspective, and keeping yourself in check as a parent, and understanding that the odds of them becoming LeBron James are pretty rare.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's so many wonderful life lessons in sports or activities in general, working hard, perseverance, motivation. And then of course there's the whole physical aspect of it as well, eating healthy. I mean, we have to just ingrain in our kids at this young age, the importance of drinking water and eating healthy, because I grew up in the 80s, that wasn't around, it was like, here's McDonald's for dinner. You want to have it again tomorrow? You want to have it again tomorrow? That kind of thing. And I just think that we are really at an advantage to live in the time that we do, to teach our children all of those wonderful things that come with any kind of activity, whether it's, musical lessons or singing lessons or whatever it may be. There's just a lot of advantages and life lessons in activities.
Hey friends, a quick break here to thank Beam for supporting this podcast. Beam is where I get all of my hydration products. I'm a big runner. I don't know if you came over to this show from my other show that is about running called I'll Have Another, but Running is a big part of my life, and so making sure that I'm getting enough electrolytes in my body on a regular basis is super important, especially after a big, sweaty workout. I love their recovery hydration. It is so delicious, full of electrolytes that keeps you hydrated and helps your body function the way it's designed to function. The Elevate Recovery has this fresh lemon flavor. It is so delicious and refreshing. It has collagen peptides that are non-GMO and BCAA for supportive joint and muscle health. They also have a pre-workout hydration and a probiotic blend, all very good. I also just want to tell you about their sleep supplement. It is their Dream Blend. It's so delicious. It is like a healthy take on hot chocolate that you can have right before bed. I just warm up a little bit of hot water on my tea kettle and I mix in the Dream Blend, and then I add a tiny bit of milk to the top, and it's got sleep enhancing vitamins and minerals in it. Perfect way to end the night and help you sleep. It does have nano CBD in it as well. They actually have a white chocolate peppermint blend right now that's delicious. You can go to beamorganics.com and use the code ANOTHER at checkout, and that will get you 15% off your order. Let me know what you think about that Dream Blend. It has seriously helped my sleep so much. I love it. It is my nightly ritual. All right, friends, back to my conversation with Shanisty. Okay, so tell us a little bit about your career story. You were in the news, right?
Yes, I was. Yeah, so I graduated with a journalism degree from the University of Kentucky. And when I graduated with it, I was like, I don't want to go into the news business. I had an internship in the news business, and I was like, oh man, because it was pretty cutthroat. I had a professor at school who, she just was honest. She was like, you need to cut your hair. You need to lose 10 pounds. You need to do this. It's a very, it's a vanity career, right? It's you have to look a certain way, dress a certain way, talk a certain way. And it's still like that. It just is people that are on TV, and you have to have a thick skin. You have to have a very, very, very thick skin. I remember my first job. I cried a lot. I got made fun of, people would write me nasty emails about my hair color or my name, especially. I always got like, what is that? Like, is that a real name? And it, but it toughened me for sure. So when I graduated, I was like, I don't really want to do that. And I remember coming home from college and sitting down with my dad, and he's just very blunt. He was like, we didn't send you to college to just live at home and mow the grass. Cause that's what I was doing. I was like on a tractor mowing the grass. And so he was like, why don't you just give it a chance? And so I gave it a chance. I got my first job in Parkersburg, West Virginia, and I had launched a new show there. It was like a 10 p.m. Fox show. And I remember I was like on a billboard there. So I thought it was like, whoa, like sweet, I made it. And I lived there for 2 years. And then my next job was in Birmingham, Alabama. And I was there for 7 years. Oh. I thought that's where I thought that was it for me. I loved Alabama. I bought a home there. I met my husband there. My first son was born there. And I thought that was it for me. And then my station was sold. And typically what happens when a news station is sold to another company, they kind of just go in pecking order. Like the news director's first to go, and then the anchors, and they kind of like, it doesn't always happen like this, but they kind of wipe it out and start new, especially if the station is having issues, which our station was having issues. So our news director was fired, and I just kind of left with him. He was my mentor. He was the greatest boss I ever had. I still keep in touch with him today. And he retired. So he was kind of at the end of his career anyway. So I left there, went to Lexington, Kentucky. I was the weekend morning anchor there. I did a lot of things in Birmingham. I was the morning anchor for a long time, evening anchor. Then I did like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday shift. And then I was like the lead reporter. It was kind of like all over the board. And then I was in Lexington for 2 years, and my daughter was born in Lexington. And then at that point, when I had 2 kids and I was getting up for the morning shift, which means I had to get up at 2:00 in the morning, I was just kind of like, I don't know, this isn't sustainable. It just wasn't sustainable for for two little babies
Yeah.
at home. My older two are only 16 or 17 months apart. So it was like almost having twins. So I decided to leave the business at that time. It was a very difficult decision. I did it for 10 years. And I felt it was my identity. I got to do amazing things, meet amazing people, meet famous people, and just do things that probably the average person hasn't had the opportunity to do. So that was difficult. I went through quite the period of like, who am I? Do I just wipe butts all day long and wipe noses? And, I just felt very deflated at that point. But so that was my news career. It was wonderful. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I don't think I could do it today. The news industry's changed a lot. When I was in it, there was no social media. There was no Twitter. It was just, it was in its infancy, I should say. It was there, but it wasn't as big as it is now. And we still had cameramen and we still had people to help. And I think news stations right now, just because of the declining amount of people watching it's really difficult. They don't have as many resources.
Yeah, you see a reporter like set up their own like camera there, and yeah, that would be really challenging because I imagine as a reporter, I used to work in PR a little bit, so I kind of got to know some of the local news anchors or more so the reporters in Indianapolis, and like, yeah, it's like the people that are there with their camera guys or girls, and seem to be more males than females doing the camera, but seemed like they were like the little team together, like, we're going around doing our shoots together, and to do that alone would feel really lonely.
It's hard. I had to do it alone quite a lot. I one-man banded a lot.
Wow.
And it just is not sustainable. I think I left at a good time. I saw kind of a pathway that I started my blog while I was still in the news industry. Okay. And originally my blog was supposed to be about news and things I was reporting on, and it was going to be like from an anchor's point of view, and that's how it originally started. And so I was lucky in a sense to start the blog 12 years ago when I started it, because the market wasn't super saturated with blogs at that point.
Yeah, I know. I always say that about I have 2 podcasts that I host, and I always say that about my running podcast. I'm like, I've been doing that for 5 years now. And so when I launched that show, it was just early enough that there just weren't, every single human being on the planet didn't have a podcast, and now I launched this show just a year ago, and like the market is just so saturated already. So yeah, there's something to be said for like getting in there a little bit before the crazy and when it's everywhere. Yeah. So yeah, your blog, Becoming Domestic, I love that that's the name of it. And I just want to like talk a little bit more about that transition, because man, becoming a mom is just like, people always ask, I have 4 kids too. So people always ask like, what was the hardest? Like 0 to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4. I'm like, I literally don't know how to answer that question because they were all hard for different reasons, right? Like, I don't know. I don't know if it was 0 to 1 or 3 to 4. I have no idea. They were all hard for different reasons. But I will say, just becoming a mom, that first time you're doing any of it, that has to be the most like jolting, because you've never done any of those things before.
Yeah, it is. It's quite the transition, especially if you're in a full-time career at the same time that requires a lot out of you. So for me, when I was in the news business, there was like no time, like I didn't get breaks to pump, like on a, I'm on a house fire, like where am I going to go? Yeah. Like, it's not exactly an easy transition for a new mom, right? There was no sympathy there. It was just, okay, you're back, here we go. And I don't want to knock it. That's just the way it is. So when my son was born, I was kind of already on the fence of like moving to perhaps part-time. That's when I moved to like the Friday, Saturday, Sunday anchor, because my husband was home during the week and he could help more. And it just kind of made sense for our family. But then when my daughter was born, I just didn't see how it was going to work. It
Yeah.
just didn't seem sustainable. And at that point, when I moved to Lexington, I think I was kind of a little burned out. Like I was kind of done with it. And I had a couple of friends in the news business that really encouraged me to just, give it one more market, try it one more time, see how it lands, see how you do. And I liked it, okay, but it just wasn't sustainable, like I said, for raising a family. But for me, I would say the most difficult transition was 1 to 2. But I honestly think it's because my kids were so close together in age. So my son Luke, he was barely speaking. I think he said he was 7 months old when I found out I was pregnant.
Yeah.
Again, I'm still not sleeping. I'm still not anything. And my daughter was a complete surprise. So I never forget, I walked out of the bathroom with my pregnancy test. And I'm like, well, what are we going to do? It was no
yeah,
we're pregnant, woo! But she turned out to be the most amazing surprise. She's my only daughter.
Yeah, she's your only girl.
She's my only girl. And we could not survive without her. She's absolutely incredible. She's so talented. She's in the Nutcracker this weekend.
Aww.
She's got a lead role. She's a baby lead mouse. It's very exciting.
That's so cute.
And she's just absolutely wonderful. But at the time, you're just like, oh crap! What are we gonna do? But yeah, so my blog, as I mentioned, was supposed to be about the news business, and then it transitioned into a parenting blog with She's Becoming Domestic, because I found that I was much more relatable on that front. More people could relate to being a parent than being in the news industry. It just turned into something that I was accustomed to because it was my world that I was living in, being a mom. And then I started doing recipes, and I started talking about the ins and outs of being a mom. And one of the things I would definitely say, hands down, besides of course being a mom and having my children, my blog is my most proudest accomplishment for sure, because I love writing. That's why I went into journalism. I didn't go into journalism to be on TV. I went into journalism because I wanted to write. When I went to Kentucky, I said, I just want to be a writer. And they were like, well, you don't really there's no degree for that. You can't just come in and be a writer. And so that's why I chose journalism, was because of the writing. And so my blog is just such a wonderful platform where I can just say whatever I want. Of course, I try to keep it kosher. I don't really talk about politics. I don't really talk about religion or anything like that, because that's just not what my audience wants to hear. They want to hear about the crazy things that happen and the crazy stories, and just keeping it real and keeping it relatable, and sharing recipes that are going to only take you 15 minutes to do, and sharing recipes that are good for picky eaters and things like that. And so, and what it's really done in the past couple of years is it's kind of all full circle, because now I'm appearing on TV every single week at various stations throughout the country via Zoom, sharing these recipes. So I'm able to use my blog, and I'm able to use TV and my background in that. And it's wonderful. I feel so happy right now, because I just feel like I have my ultimate dream job, because I'm combining it all. And the beauty of it is I'm doing it from Zoom at home with my kids. I'm in my kitchen, and I just take them down here to the basement, which is so beautiful. And, and just say, all right, well, mom's going to be on TV now in California. So, just be quiet for 20 minutes. And they do a wonderful job. They're used to it now. So it's kind of all come full circle for me.
I love that. And also, if one of the kids happen to pop up while you're doing that, it's I don't know, they know that you're a mom, and that's what I know you try to keep the kids away, but I always feel like if every so often a slip up like that happens, I can just roll with it. I know. At this point.
And it's so funny. My mother-in-law actually mentioned that, because, in the world that we live in with Zoom now, and a lot of these TV stations they've moved to that, where their experts are via Zoom, and their cooking segments are being via Zoom. And personally, I love it, because before the pandemic, I was only able to do Columbus. I went to Kentucky a few times. I traveled to Cincinnati and Cleveland, but that was pretty much it. I wasn't going to go much further than that, just because, 4 kids. But then whenever everything moved to Zoom, yesterday I was in Green Bay, and then on Monday I was in, what state was I I think somewhere in Illinois. And then on Monday, I will be on TV in Burbank, California. So I'm able to do all of this from my kitchen. And I would be surprised if local news goes back to having in-person guests, because it's really expanded their net. And I also think it's more appealing to the viewer to see their experts or their people in their own natural environment, even if that does mean that kids are coming up from the basement and, saying, "Mom, Mom, Mom." As long as you're not talking about nuclear war or something, it's fine.
Yeah. So you mentioned like that transition of like professional life, and I'm sure some of that is like getting dressed up, putting the makeup on, like going out and being a professional, to like, okay, I'm at home now with my kids. I don't know. Sometimes I'm like, just wish I had a reason to dress up, right? Like sometimes I just wish I had a reason to like, which now you do, you have your TV stuff, but,
yes.
Talk to us a little bit about that transition and how you kind of like found yourself again.
Wonderful question. I would say it has definitely been through the TV stuff, because before that, like you put on like minimal makeup sometimes, but
it's like my everyday, just like basic, real basic, but enough that I feel a little bit better.
Yeah. And I think that, whether it's makeup or whether it's doing yoga or meditating or whatever someone needs to do, I think that we all need to do that on a daily basis, especially if you're at home, because it's really easy to just get trapped into the mundane. And then all of a sudden you wake up and, your husband's coming home and he's like, "How was your day?" And I'm like, "I don't even know, because I don't even know what I did today," even though you're doing a ton. So, I think for me, you mentioned it, it's definitely been getting back into TV, because it's forced me to do my makeup and, get my hair done. I had not gotten my hair cut in 2 years.
Oh my gosh.
Or colored, or no color, no cut, no nothing for 2 years, up until I started doing this again and got my teeth whitened and all of that. And so whether it's that, for me, that helped me get back to myself, because that was my former career.
Yeah.
That was, so that may not be for everybody, getting your hair done or your teeth whitened or whatever it may be. But for me, that's definitely what has helped me feel as though I'm not just a mom, even though being a mom is the greatest, most challenging job in the entire world. But there is more to that. And I think it's really important, and we shouldn't feel ashamed to admit that too. I think it's important to feel as though, you're a woman and you are part of your former self. Now, I'm not like going out to clubs and getting crazy or anything at all, but finding me time for me personally is through the work that I'm now doing. It's kind of bringing back a former area of my life. And I feel validated because I'm doing something that I went to school for. I'm doing something that I can bring a little bit of income into the house with. And it's really been great for me. And I mean, my husband probably definitely likes coming home and seeing me, out of my yoga pants.
Yeah.
So yeah, every once in a while. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And I always think about this too, like, now as a mom, and as I'm like, well, I guess really like halfway through, my oldest is 9. We're like a year ahead of you with our kids.
Okay.
Ours are like 9, almost 7, 5, and 3.
Okay. So Luke will be 9 in January next month.
So we're close. My little 3 are closer in age than my older 2 have a little bit more of a gap, and then my younger 3 are all under 2 years apart.
Okay.
But as I'm getting to that, like, okay, whoa, 9, we're halfway there. You're going to be 18 in 9 years. I always think about like, what did I think of my mom as a kid? Like, did I think of her just as mom, or did I think of her as like, she went to school to be a nurse when I was like 6 and finished that when I was like 9. Like, so what versions of my mom did I think about? Mom being a nurse, mom who had friends, and it's like, I don't know. It's just interesting to think what our kids think about who we are. It's like they know what matters to me most is being their mom. I tell them every day, like, I love being your mom. It's the best thing in the world. But like, how much do they know that I love to run? How much do they know that I love to podcast? How much do they know that I love to talk to my best friend from Indiana on the phone at least once a week? You know what I mean? So I just think it's so important for our kids to see these things. And I wonder how much they'll remember and take with them as adults.
Absolutely. And for me, my mom worked from home from the very beginning. So she was kind of I guess a kind of a pioneer in that. She owns her own business. She owns a trucking company, actually, which is not a female dominated business. Yeah. And so growing up, I was so accustomed to that lifestyle in the sense that mom is here, but she's not really here because she's working so much. And so for me, I think that it's kind of channeling what I'm doing. Now, my job is not nearly as demanding as like a trucking company right now, but I admired it big time, especially being a female. I think my mom is the most amazing, hardest working person in the entire world. And I still think that to this day, because she's still running that trucking company.
Oh, that's so cool.
And it's cool, but she needs to retire. Like it's
come on, Mom.
Yeah. So hopefully soon it'll be coming to an end. But I look at my daughter and I hope that my daughter especially, but also my boys, they see a mom that works really hard. And because I think that's really important to instill work ethic into our kids, not just dads going away to work, but mom works hard too. Be it, a side hustle or podcasting or running even, or, even keeping the house clean. I think it's important that we aren't completely always available for our children.
Yes.
Like I'm not your entertainer.
Yes.
I'm not, I mean, I'll be there. And like, if you ask me to help you with this puzzle, sure. I'm not going to be like, nope, you got it, but I don't set up activities for my kids. Like I'm not their entertainer. They need to know that mom has a career, mom has a job. She works really hard, because that's only going to help them with their work ethic, especially our daughters, especially our girls. I hope that my daughter sees that and she wants to go to college or wants to go to trade school or whatever it is that she wants to do. But that, they'll always know that it wasn't just dad working hard. It was mom too.
Yeah, I love that vision. And you do feel, I think as someone who works from home part-time, like I feel like, I don't know if you would consider yourself work from home part-time, but that's that's what I probably work 20 to 30 hours a week, depending on the week, sometimes less, sometimes more. And I think I get this pressure and guilt sometimes that my husband just doesn't have. And it's not anything that like he tries to not have. He just doesn't. He actually has been working from home too for a couple years now. Well, since the pandemic. So he's physically here too. But he doesn't have the guilt that I have when I'm like, oh, I feel like I need to like stop what I'm doing and spend like an hour with the kids. And sometimes I do that. But on days like today, I have 3 interviews today. Like I'm probably not going to spend much one-on-one time like that. I'll have a tiny bit of guilt. And it's like, good Lord, it's frustrating that you feel that.
Well, I think my personal opinion is I think that guilt, a lot of it is coming from social media, and we're having this compare game, right? Because we're hearing about moms that do, the play groups, and we're seeing these activities, and like, I mean, I don't know about you, but as I mentioned, my mom didn't do any of that. Like she had a job and I turned out just fine, and I don't resent her. And I don't think that I would have had a better upbringing if she did, be my entertainment director. But I think
entertainment director. I love that.
Yeah. But like, I think that we just currently live in that's our reality. Is it social media, and we're scrolling and we're like, oh man, look at that woman. She's beautiful. She's doing this fun sensory activity with her toddler and her house is clean, right? And that's where the guilt comes from, in my opinion. And so I think if we can remove ourselves from that, or at least have the understanding that what we see on this is not real. It's a highlight reel, right? We're, very rare you're going to come across somebody that's just really, really, really being real with it. And so I think that once we're able to eliminate that, or just accept the fact that we're not going to do it all, we can't. It's impossible to do it all. It's absolutely impossible. Then that's only the way that the guilt's going to be lifted. Now, of course, I have guilt too. I'm not saying I'm guilt-free, but I think that once we come to grasp with that, we're going to have just this mom guilt, because the mom guilt is real, and mom shaming is real. But once we realize that, we're just doing the best that we can, and everyone else just needs to pipe down, you know, that's my opinion on it. And like, our parents didn't grow up with social media, so like they could talk to their friend, Sally down the street about what she's doing, but we weren't seeing it, right? And so now that we're seeing it, that guilt has just gone through the roof.
Yeah, it's so interesting too, because if I think back, my mom was a great mom, but I don't remember her playing lots of games with me or like doing any of that. I remember her being really good at taking care of me when I was sick.
Yes.
Like
exactly.
I remember that. And I still, at 38, it almost makes me want to cry. I still want my mom when I'm sick,
Absolutely. Yeah. And I actually wrote a recent blog post about that, because the childhood home that I grew up in is actually just down the street from where we live. And I drove past it and I was like, oh, kids, that's the house mommy grew up in. And they're like, cool. They moved on. And so then I started thinking about, like, it's just a split level home. There's no granite countertops or gold light fixtures or everything we see on social media. It was just a normal middle class Midwest home with a mom and a dad, and I was an only child, so I didn't even have any I siblings to play with. And I just remember, I have such fond memories. I thought it was the biggest house in the world. I had, I thought it was the most wonderful childhood because of how I felt, because of the way my mom comforted me when I was feeling sick, like you mentioned, or the way that, my dad would watch movies with me, or things like that. So, in our house, we put a big emphasis on, family movie night, and we do family game night. And so you don't have to all day long, create all of this stuff for their kids. I have some friends who, they do stuff with their kids all day long. And they've commented to me, I can't believe how well your kids play together. And I'm like,
I hear that too.
Yeah, because you know what? Mom ain't it. Like, I'm not doing it. You guys, you fend for yourselves. You figure it out. Like, you play make-believe. You play with your brothers and sisters. You do the building blocks. You do all of that. Like, because once you get into that, it's a slippery slope, and then they're going to expect more and more and more of you. And I just don't have it in me. I don't have that bandwidth. That's something. But you know what? If you are that mom that prepares the Play-Doh activities and the sensory tables, more power to you.
Yeah, if you like that.
100%. Like, I'm not judging that. I have a friend in Lexington. She's a former preschool teacher. She's got 5 kids, and she has a blog, and that's her thing, and she loves it. Great. And I love to cook. Not everyone loves to cook, so we all have our thing. But I really just, and this isn't even directed to you, just to everyone, we shouldn't feel guilty for not being that mom.
Yeah.
One of the things that when I was pregnant with my first, you walk into Bye Baby and you're completely overwhelmed. You're like, oh, well, I need this and I need this and I need this and I need all this stuff. Well, we don't. And we didn't find out the gender for any of our kids. So all 4 of them were a surprise. And part of why we did that is so we would get gender neutral things. Yeah. And, if it's a boy, great. If it's a girl, we can, it all evens out. And I had this nurse say to me at the doctor's office, because we were doing this whole TV series on my pregnancy. It was out of control, ridiculous, but it was fun at the time. And on her interview, she said, this is what a baby needs: warm, clean clothes, a safe place to sleep, and food. That's it. Yeah. And comfort. And I think that has to do with kids. That translates over the years too. That's all they really need. They need love. They need comfort. They need food, clothes to wear, and a safe place to be. And I would hope that my kids will feel the same way as I do about my childhood of that's what I felt with my mom and dad.
Hey friends, I hope you're enjoying my conversation with Shanisty. I want to take a quick break to let you know about Gooder. Goodr is the place to buy the best sunglasses that are functional, affordable, and super fun. They don't slip around if you're on the go, out running around, doing yard work, whatever it is. They stay in place, and they have really classic, clean styles as well as really fun and loud styles. I love wearing like bright red shades. That's like my signature look when I do races or when I'm just doing something fun. I actually have a really fun yellow color that I happen to be able to wear on Halloween because I was a banana for Halloween. But my favorite are the Breakfast Run to Tiffany's shades. They're a runway style and they are just so cute and they're a little sassy and I love that. This is a great gift idea as well. And just go treat yourself, okay? Get yourself a couple pairs because if you use the discount code, you might as well grab a couple pairs. Go to goodr.com/another and use the code another15. That's another 15, and that will save you 15% off your order. That's another 15, and that'll save you 15% off your order. All right, friends, back to my conversation with Shanisty. You know, it's so true. We have worked really hard. And this sounds so dumb to say. We have worked really hard for this. But I truly have to like keep our toys and things minimal with the kids because the clutter stresses me out. The stuff stresses me out. I don't want to be a stuff manager. Like I just, and we'll go to our in-laws' houses and the cousins and all that. And they have 20 times as many toys as us. And it's really fun and exciting. And the kids go crazy in their basement and they love it. And sometimes I look at it and I'm like, wow, this would be really fun. Would they entertain themselves more? But the truth is like if they have all that stuff, they're used to it. So it's like not that exciting anymore, right?
100%. And I mean, another thing that I've noticed is like, I mean, we're in our basement. I'm not even going to swing the camera around because it is just a disaster. But what I've noticed as well is like, sure, like the little one, or like my 2-year-old right now is into Magna tiles and he's into Matchbox
cars. Such a great toy.
He's into all that. But my 9 and 7-year-old, like they don't play with toys hardly at all. My daughter still draws a lot, but my son's into sports. He's into golf. He's into throwing the football. He's into playing with the neighbor boys. So all of that stuff. And I know Christmas is coming up. And of course the grandparents are going to overwhelm us with Santa, I should say, is going to overwhelm us with all of this stuff. But at the end of the day, like it's going to last a week and then they lose interest in it. So I think this stuff is great for other people, and it's great when your kids go because they have something to look forward to and it's new and exciting and it's toys and all of that. But I don't even think that's, I don't know, it's just not important at all, especially if you have more than one kid. Like me as an only child, it was a little different. I'm not saying I had more stuff than my kids do, but yeah, I had to entertain myself a lot.
That's true. So, no, that's true.
So it was definitely a much different dynamic. It's also why I was very excited to have a very large family. Aww. And I mean, because I did not love being an only child. It was just the way it worked out for my mom and dad. It's not what they chose. They had difficulty getting pregnant after me. So that's just kind of what God handed them. But it's not the life that I would have chose to be an only child. It was tough.
Yeah, it's so interesting you bring that up too, because I remember as kids, you don't think about it. You don't know. Oh, there's a family with an only child. You have no idea what those parents have been through, have struggled through. If they wanted one kid, if they wanted 5 kids, and they could only have one kid. And now as a mom, like a lot of us moms have walked through miscarriage and things like that. And like I always assume there's a story there. I just assume it. And I have friends that have an only child. I have a couple that they chose. They really wanted one child. But I always assume there's a story there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes we want to talk about guilt. Sometimes I feel guilty that I have so many kids.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I've been so blessed with all these kids. And then on the flip side, it's like, it's also really hard and can be really stressful. So, but I don't want to ever really complain because I know how fortunate I am. But at the same time, real life, it's freaking hard.
It is hard. And then, but that's just kind of, I don't know, that's just kind of what we've been dealt as moms, because then I have friends who have gone through infertility and gone through IVF and gone through all of that. And then all of a sudden, they have their baby and then they feel guilty about complaining about being sleep deprived.
Right. Because they worked so hard to have that baby.
Work so hard. So, I mean, that's the whole mom shaming thing that, and so I have one of my good friends, went through infertility and she got pregnant with her firstborn. It was supposed to be twins. The twin didn't survive, but her son was born. And then she got pregnant again with IVF with twins. And then they had a surprise. So she has 4 now. And so she talks about how, it's just, you go through every single emotion with infertility. She was angry. She was jealous. She was sad. She just went through all of this. And then all of a sudden, boom, she was blessed with 4. So she went through that whole period of like feeling guilty about complaining, or anything. So it's okay to complain. It's okay to admit it's really hard. It's okay to have one. It's okay to have none. I think that, kids are going to be okay as long as they have that strong foundation of love and support and comfort wherever it may come from. If a single mom, a single dad, a blended family, however it may be, that's just kind of the key to it. And I'm a full believer of like, if we could all just do that, and if it could all start at home, I think the world would be a much easier place to live in.
Before we wrap up here with Into Podcast questions, she's becoming domestic. Like, did you decide I'm going to start cooking dinners for my family and I'm going to teach myself this? And now is it something you really love to do, or did you always actually love to do it? You just didn't have time for it?
Ooh, that's a great question. So I grew up, my mom was always a wonderful, fabulous cook. She's like a wizard in the kitchen. And I was not ever that kid that wanted to help in the kitchen. I know that there's a lot of kids, like my 5-year-old Adam loves helping in the kitchen. So he's going to grow up and he's going to know how to cook eggs. So I always grew up just kind of, I don't know, I feel like kids can just be a little selfish and self-centered and in their own world. So I just kind of grew up with, oh, mom's going to make a delicious dinner tonight. So I kind of was thrown to the wolves in a sense when I went off to college and then went out into the real world. Like, I just didn't really know how to do a ton of stuff. And it's no fault of my mom. She tried to teach me. I was just stubborn and in my own world and just didn't have time for that. I was like really into basketball. So I just didn't have time to learn any of that. So when I was on my own, I started to cook more, and I would ask her silly questions like, how do you hard boil an egg?
Yeah.
I just didn't know, how long does it boil for? How does, how do you marinate your steak? Just little things like that. So she helped me a lot in the beginning with that. And then I just really started to love to cook. And so of course I didn't have anyone to cook for when I was single. And then my husband and I got married. I was 28, he was 30. So we were a little bit older. I mean, not old at all, but in the South, that's old.
Yeah.
Because we were both living in Alabama. And so I just started to learn more and more and more about cooking. And ultimately I've got a lot of dreams, because I think I'm also a firm believer of never stop dreaming, never stop working at your craft and what you love. But I would love to produce a cookbook, especially a family friendly one. So pretty much 6 nights or 7 nights out of the week, we eat at home. I do the majority of the cooking. So the She's Becoming Domestic name kind of transformed into I was this single newswoman with this amazing glamorous career, even though it's not really that glamorous, but people think it's glamorous, to a wife. And there's nothing wrong with that. And that's what I wanted to do ultimately. But I kind of, and it's funny because I've thought so long about changing the name of the blog, because obviously I am domestic now. I'm domesticated in a sense, but everyone I talk to is like, no, keep it.
I like it
because it encompasses my life, my background, my previous life, what I do now with TV, and then just being a mom. I didn't have, like I mentioned, I didn't have brothers and sisters. So I felt like when my first son was born, I was never around babies. I didn't know anything. Like I was never that kid that babysat.
I hated babysitting.
I did too. I know, like for the longest time, I remember being pregnant with Luke and just like saying to my husband, like, but I don't know if I really even like babies. And he's like, well, it's too late now, you know? But my husband's one of 7 kids and he loves kids. Yeah. Wow. And so he grew up in a large family, which is also crazy because usually people that grow up in a large family maybe want 1 or 2 or 3. But my husband would love 10 if he could.
Yeah.
I mean, he wants more kids. I'm like, I'm getting old. Yeah. Like you're going to have to trade me in for a younger model if you want a ton more. But, but yeah, so that's kind of how it came to be. And then I just kept it. And so hopefully there's big things to come this year. I'd love to get the cookbook when I have my free time and do more, more videos and more TV stuff. And then of course, just through social media, just more things with my brand. And I think the audience really loves the realness of it and the simplicity. And I also like to talk I kind of feel like Seinfeld in a sense. Like I talk a lot about like everyday things that are like nothing.
Yeah.
But it's something that like, I mean, for example, I don't know, I posted this picture about like the front right burner is definitely the best burner.
And
obviously.
That's true.
Like, I think I got like 100 and some comments, people commenting, everyone has a favorite burner, right? Like on your stove. And it's just little things like that. Or like, going to bed and saying you'll get gas in the morning is like the stupidest thing you could do because you're not going to get gas, So I just really try to keep it real. I don't try to pretend to be somebody I'm not because why? Life's too short for that. And so on my blog, I talk about everything. I mean, I just had a miscarriage and I talked about that. And I don't really hold anything back at all because we're all going through it. We're all dealing with the same stuff in terms of parents and parenting. And, I don't know. I think it's freeing. It's therapeutic for me to write. And I just want to connect with as many people as I possibly can. I mean, if I could be Sarah Blakely from Spanx and give everybody $10,000, I would, because I just want to help people. I guess that's in my nature. It's another reason why I went into journalism is to try to help people by telling their stories.
I always thought the coolest thing about being rich would be how you could just like go to a restaurant and tip the waiter like couple $1,000 just for fun.
Oh, I love those stories around the holidays where like a waitress at Waffle House gets a $10,000 tip or whatever.
But if you're Sarah Blakely, you could literally tip $1,000 every time you go out to eat.
I love her so much. I feel like she's like my woman crush. And if anyone's listening and is not familiar with her, like do yourself a favor, follow her on social media. She's just and her story is amazing. She started her company in her apartment and it's just, and now she's got to be one of the richest women in the world. I would imagine.
I would say one of the richest humans. Yeah. Like I would. Yeah, for sure.
So I look up to her a lot.
Totally. Okay. I have a Instagram live at 3. So let's wrap up with the end of the podcast questions. Yeah. We might have already answered this because I know about your cookbook, which I need to just get on your site and search around because for the life of me, I cannot figure out kid-friendly meals that I like to, because I always want to eat something like super healthy and, whatever. And my kids want macaroni and quesadillas and chicken nuggets. And, that's partly my own fault, but.
Yeah, well, I'm a firm believer of not making 2 dinners. Like I make 1 dinner, and I always make sure that there's at least something on my child's plate that I know they'll eat.
Like I always cut up apples. Like
or whether that's buttered noodles or it's just carrots or whatever. I make sure that they're going to at least eat one thing.
Yeah.
But also though, really bringing it in and eating as a family, my kids aren't distracted by other things.
Yeah.
And they're like, Mom and Dad are eating, like I'm gonna eat this, and I think that's really important as well, is to just like sit around the table and actually converse and eat as a family if you can. Of course, life gets busy.
I will say our kids last about 7 minutes and everybody's running circles. It is just it is a circus.
Yeah. I get that.
Okay. So the question was, what's one thing professionally or personally you'd like to do that you haven't done yet?
Yeah. Gosh, I would say that. I would love to write a cookbook. I've always wanted to write a book. I mean, I think that eventually that's like what I really want to do is write a book. But I'm always like, but I don't have a good idea. And people are like, well, write about your life. And I'm like, well, it's not that interesting. Oh. But I really like to do a cookbook. I would love to do it with like QR codes where there's actual videos if you can actually see of how to do it. Just something that's really interactive. So hopefully if I can get some help in terms of babysitting or something, then I can get that going. So,
what's the best, most recent book you've read?
Oh gosh. I read Ready Player One. Have you read that?
No, what is it?
Well, it was made into a movie. I think it's like on Netflix or something, but the essential story of it is like they live in an apocalyptic world and they are virtual reality. They just play video games, like all these people. And so they live in this virtual world. I'm not into this stuff, okay? So don't think I'm like sci-fi and like VR stuff. But my husband was like, read it. It's really good. And I was actually hooked on it. It's just a really, really well-written book. I'm also reading Green Lights, Matthew McConaughey's biography.
Okay.
Like, I know that's like complete polar opposites, but I don't really read like, I don't know, trash novels or anything. So probably everyone listening is like, I'm not going to read either one of those.
I mean, I want to read Green Lights. Although I heard him on like 5 million podcasts. And I'm like, I think I got the story though.
Oh, I love him. He's like my love.
Yeah, he's good.
Tell my husband.
Don't tell him. Yeah. Okay, what is your last message to leave with the audience today?
Oh my gosh, just be you. Be authentic. Like, don't look around on social media and compare yourself. I know it's so hard to do, but like, step away from social. Just live in the present. And I know it's like, put the phone down. Well, my job's on my phone, so I know that's not completely realistic. Like, I hate when people are like, oh, like, just turn your phone off. And I'm like, well, okay. But I guess just be authentic and be the real you, because that's what people want. Everyone has a story to tell and everyone's a fascinating, unique human. So I just think that not comparing yourself, being real, being authentic to who you are, that's my main message, I would say.
All right, friends, thanks for being here today. Thank you, Shanisty, for sharing your story and connecting with us. If you all want to learn more about Shanisty, follow her on Instagram. She's super fun over there. She is Shanisty Ireland, and her blog is called She's Becoming Domestic. You can connect with me personally on Instagram. I am Lindsay Hine 626. Find this podcast. We are Why Is Everyone Yelling over there, as well as Sandy Boy Productions has an Instagram account, Sandy Boy Productions. And you can learn more about the show when you go to sandyboyproductions.com. Friends, I'm so grateful for you. I hope you have a wonderful holiday season. Merry Christmas. And we will see you back here with another episode on December 28th.